Everyone knew the Parker twins, but no one really knew them. Emma and Evan Parker, tall, pale, ice blue eyes that looked like winter storms, and so quiet they often blended with the school walls. They were the kind of students who never raised their voices, never got into trouble, and never talked unless necessary. At Central Ridge High, where loud egos and fake popularity reigned supreme, silence made them invisible. And the bullies. They fed on invisibility. For them, it meant weakness. It all started on a cold Tuesday morning. Evan and Emma walked through the school gates in matching black hoodies, their books in one hand, and a calm, unreadable gaze scanning the chaos of early morning chatter. As always, they separated to go to their lockers, different wings, different classes, but synced as if telepathically connected. What no one noticed, however, was the way their steps held balance, the rhythm of martial discipline, the alertness behind their glances. But something had shifted in the hallways. A new senior clique had taken over, ruthless, arrogant, led by the self-proclaimed king of the school, Mason. Flanked by his overgrown minions, Troy and Chase, Mason ruled through fear and humiliation. They hunted weakness, and to them, the Parker twins seemed like perfect prey. First, it was the small stuff. Shoulder bumps in the hallway. Kicking Evan's books from his hands. Yanking Emma's notebook and mocking her neat handwriting. The twins didn't react. Not a flinch. Their poker faces made it worse. Mason hated being ignored. He thrived on reactions, on watching his victims squirm. Then came the verbal jabs. "Hey Casper, what graveyard did you crawl out from?" Mason barked at Evan in front of a crowd. Emma was nearby, her fingers clenching her locker's edge, but she said nothing. Evan's eyes flickered toward his sister, just for a second, and then he turned, walked away. But that was the warning. The twins weren't passive. They were calculating. Calm didn't mean cowardice. It meant control. At home, their father, a retired Special Forces trainer, watched the twins spar every day in their backyard dojo. Since they were 6, Emma and Evan trained in Krav Maga, Jiu-Jitsu, and Muay Thai. Not for sport. For survival. Their mother, who once broke a man's jaw while defending a coworker, taught them the art of control. Use violence only when it's the only language left, she'd always say. And now, the bullies were pushing the twins toward that very edge. Things escalated after Mason caught Evan sketching during lunch. He snatched the sketchbook, tore a page, and held it up, laughing. "What's this?" "Your dream wedding with your sister," he mocked. Laughter roared from the tables. Evan sat still, eyes closed, jaw tight. Emma arrived seconds later. She saw the torn pages, the laughter, the red fury in her brother's ears. She didn't attack. Not yet. She simply picked up the shredded sketch, looked Mason dead in the eye, and said, "Return it." Her voice was calm, but ice cold. It silenced the crowd. Even Mason blinked. Then he laughed louder. "Or what? You'll cry me to death." That night, the twins trained longer than usual. Their father watched silently from the edge, noting their precision. "It's coming, isn't it?" he finally asked. Evan just nodded. Emma whispered, "We'll wait until they corner us. We won't start it. But we'll end it." The next day came like a fuse ready to burn. Rumors floated through the school that Mason and his goons were planning something epic for the twins. The trap was laid in the abandoned gym wing, no cameras, no supervision, just concrete and echoes. Mason's crew blocked Emma's path after 5th period. She was alone. He sneered. "Your brother said you're the tough one. Let's see it." Emma stayed silent. Just then, Troy and Chase dragged Evan into the hallway from the other end. He had a slight bruise on his cheek. Emma's eyes narrowed. Mason cracked his knuckles. "Let's play." The next 5 minutes changed Central Ridge High forever. Mason lunged toward Emma, laughing, but his feet left the ground. Her leg shot up, slammed into his chest, and sent him crashing into a locker. Before Chase could grab Evan's collar, the twin ducked, twisted his wrist, and brought him to the floor in a scream of agony. Emma's elbow connected with Troy's jaw before he even blinked. It wasn't a fight. It was precision. Controlled chaos. Beautiful destruction. A small crowd had followed the spectacle. Phones came out, gasps rang. Emma had Mason's arm locked behind his back, foot on his neck. Evan stood over Chase, who whimpered in pain. The twins didn't yell. They didn't brag. They just breathed, calm, steady. A teacher arrived moments later, jaw-dropping. Silence took over the hallway. Someone muttered, "What are they?" Principal Harris watched the security footage and immediately called in the parents. The twins were suspended for a week, not because of what they did, but because of the media storm that followed. The video went viral. Ghost twins break bones like they're glass, read the top headline. Local news, interviews, even a talk show invitation, Emma and Evan declined them all. Back home, their mother hugged them. Their father simply said, "You didn't break the rules. You enforced your boundaries." The week-long suspension wasn't punishment. The twins had made their point. Emma and Evan Parker spent the days training, recalibrating, and preparing for what they both knew deep down: this wasn't over. Mason's pride wouldn't let it be. And though Chase was still nursing a sprained wrist and Troy hadn't shown his jaw in public since the incident, the ringleader wouldn't back down that easily. It was never about physical power with bullies like Mason, it was about dominance. And now, that grip was slipping. By the time the twins returned to school, they weren't just two weird quiet kids anymore, they were legends. Whispers filled every hallway. "Don't mess with the ghost twins. Heard they were trained assassins. Their dad's ex-military or something." The twins ignored it all. They hadn't come back for attention. They came to restore balance. But Mason. He was unraveling. That viral video had cost him everything. Respect, reputation, even his college wrestling scout who'd dropped him after seeing how easily he'd been taken down. Now, every hallway stared at him in silence. He wasn't the predator anymore, he was the clown who got dropped by a girl in one strike. And that humiliation burned. So, he plotted something darker. Something public. Something final. 2 days after the twins returned, a school assembly was announced, a celebration of school spirit and unity, they said. But Emma and Evan instantly sensed something off. Students they didn't even know glanced nervously at them in the halls. Teachers kept looking away mid-sentence. There was tension in the air, thick like a coming storm. Then it happened. During the assembly, as students filed into the gym bleachers, a sudden power cut turned the lights off. The mic shrieked. Screams echoed in the dark. Then a spotlight hit the center of the court. Mason stood there, with a live mic in one hand and a smug grin on his face. "I figured we'd all enjoy a little entertainment," he growled. "We've got some celebrities in the building, right? Bone breakers. Ghost twins. Come on down, Emma and Evan Parker." The crowd gasped. Students froze. Emma and Evan stood silently near the back doors. Every eye turned to them. Mason's crew, now expanded with a few football players, blocked the exits. They'd been planning this. Cameras were hidden in the bleachers. The whole thing was a trap, designed to make them look like animals. To bait them into another fight, this time with more cameras and more setups, so Mason could spin the narrative his way. Evan took a step forward, but Emma grabbed his arm. Her voice was soft, barely above a whisper. "No. Not yet." Mason started taunting again. "Come on, Mr. Sketchbook. Or are you scared without your twin?" He chuckled. "Or maybe she wears the pants in your freaky little relationship." That did it. Emma stepped forward, calm and composed, walking straight into the spotlight. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. Mason lifted his fists. "Round 2, baby." But Emma raised her hand. Not in surrender. In invitation. Evan stepped forward next, walking to her side. They stood shoulder to shoulder. Not flinching. Not blinking. And then, they moved. Mason lunged, too fast, too sloppy. Emma spun low, sweeping his legs out from under him. Before he hit the floor, Evan struck a nerve in his shoulder that made his whole arm go limp. Mason howled, falling like a sack of bricks. The crowd exploded in gasps. The other boys jumped in. But this wasn't like the last fight. This was war. The twins had rehearsed every possibility. Chase tried to grapple Evan, only to be flipped over and slammed flat. A linebacker charged at Emma, she ducked, struck his ribs, and sent him collapsing, gasping for breath. One by one, they fell. 6 boys trained to tackle brought down by 2 teens trained to dismantle. In 30 seconds, it was over. Not a single punch thrown in rage. Every move was clinical. Controlled. Professional. Then Principal Harris arrived, again too late, and stared in stunned silence. Teachers rushed in, jaws on the floor. Emma stepped back, letting her breathing calm. Evan helped Mason to his knees. He whispered something no one else could hear, but Mason's eyes widened. It wasn't a threat. It was a warning. A promise. Later, in the principal's office, the twins sat silently. Their parents were called in. Mr. Parker wore his army jacket. Mrs. Parker smiled politely. "You've seen the footage," she said calmly. "They didn't start it. Again. The school board didn't suspend them. This time, they thanked them for defending themselves with control. For stopping a public disaster before it spiraled. And the truth? The school needed them. After this, bullying plummeted. Students started taking self-defense classes. Emma and Evan were asked to run a peer safety workshop. And surprisingly, they agreed. But they made one request. No cameras. No clout. Just respect. From that day on, the twins weren't feared. They were admired. Students who were once invisible came to them for help. Quiet kids started speaking louder. Even Mason, with his arm in a sling, transferred schools. His reign of terror was over. And the twins? They kept walking the halls in silence, but now, the silence had power. It had history. It had meaning. Not every hero wears a cape. Some wear hoodies, walk quietly, and wait until the moment justice demands them.